Welcome to Chronicles of Yesteryear. I am Unbound Sage, and today we talk about Ramses. Now, Ramses was an Egyptian pharaoh, and during this time, Egypt was recovering from a less than stellar pharaoh, probably one of the worst pharaohs ever. And this guy here, if we want to look at him, is Akhenaten. Now, this guy wasn't just like a bad pharaoh. Right, this is not Ramses. This is the bad pharaoh. He was so bad. He's often excluded from list of rulers because he was just so bad at it. His immediate successors referred to him as the enemy and that criminal. He was neglectful and allowed a lot of Egyptian ruled areas to fall. And he didn't maintain the army. He was very focused on like creating his own religion, stepping away from like, the religion we know about Ra and the more traditional Egyptian religion. And yeah, it was miserable. And so those 70 years were mainly spent between this guy and Ramses. The rulers between them were really trying to pick up the pieces. Like I said, this guy was absolutely awful for Egypt, and is considered by Egyptian people of the time to be a awful person. But that leads us here to King Ramses, right? Pharaoh Ramses. And he co-ruled with his father for about 10 years. And there's a lot of interesting people during this time from what's his name? Akhenaten, right, to Ramses. There are people in there like King Tut's in there. There's a lot of really interesting people that really helped build Egypt back up. So Ramses here, he was in a position to reclaim Egyptian land lost to rebels and lost to other pieces. He takes the throne at the age of 25 and really hits the ground running here. In year 2, he really pushes back against these pirates that were bothering Egypt, and then moves his sights to reclaiming the actual land that he's lost. And by the land he lost, I mean the land that guy lost, that Egypt lost, and really bring it back. He was also really big on domestic projects. He wanted to like really expand Egypt at that point, not just like claim desert, but actually develop that land into something more useful. And during this time, he fought many wars, and he was completely undefeated. There were setbacks, there were standstills, there were stalemates, but he never lost. He either met the army in battle and crushed them, or met them in battle and like no ground was lost. So this was a really big boon for Egypt at the time, and that's why he's considered to be one of the great pharaohs. So what does he do now? He has all this land recaptured, and does he go for more? He does get a little bit more, but no, he actually solidifies the Egyptian northern barrier with probably their most threatening adversaries with a peace treaty. This is the peace treaty. So it was signed by both people, by both sides, in both of their languages. And then I imagine this is the Egyptian side. I don't read Egyptian, so I can't know for sure. Yeah, and so that was in year like 21, something like that. So yeah, he really he got the land back, locked it down with this peace treaty, and then really started to cultivate the land more and more, really build it up with all the spoils of war. So you might say, okay, yeah, he did this in year, I think it was 25. I said 21 earlier, but I think it was 25. So now what? Well, when a pharaoh gets to 30 years of ruling, they have this ceremony. This ceremony is called Sed Festival. S-E-D. This festival is to honor the pharaoh and give him like renewed vigor, renewed strength for the day. So very few pharaohs ruled long enough to have a Sed festival, so having one was a big deal. Ramses had 13 or 14. And so how this works is when you hit 30, you have your first one, and then every 3 years after you have another one. Ramses was on the throne for 66 years. And that is an absolutely crazy long rule. The math doesn't quite add up, but he would have one every 2 years sometimes. Who knows? I mean, when you're an emperor that great, you can have a said festival as much as you want to. But yeah, I mean, look at this guy. He's having a great time, right? This isn't Ramses. This is another guy, like, preparing for a said festival. So, yeah, I mean, Ramses was a good guy. Pretty accomplished. Not really much to complain about. Like, 10 out of 10. Kind of reclaimed his land, locked it down, didn't get too greedy, and then rebuilt the people. And he was a beloved king that did his job. Let's go over and look at his kit now. So here we are on Raven Pyros' website. Thank you again, Raven Pyros, as always. Let me use your website in my videos. And we look here, and most of them I usually agree with, but Curse of Aru doesn't really make sense to me. Aru is like the Egyptian heaven. So it's the ideal Egypt. So think of like this fertile plain. You know, it's not like this when we think of Western heaven, we think of this more like in the clouds type thing. This is very much more like an earthy type afterlife, but like there's no plagues, there's no anything. It's just the ideal Egypt. So this is like Curse of Heaven, and this is a bit weird for me. This might be more of a pop culture reference, but I couldn't see anything that makes sense with this, because there's not really a curse here. The curse was like not getting to Aru, right? So a little weird. The acid does make sense though, because one of the biggest plights on Egypt was this plague of malaria. So if you have that disease compared to acid, makes sense to me, right? Undefeated battle makes perfect sense, right? No problem there, right? And another AoE acid, cool. And then Serpent Strike's another weird one for me. I'm not sure why they are depicting Ramses with a serpent. He wears the head thing that all Egyptians wear. There is a snake on the helmet here, but like he's not particularly known to be involved with snakes at all. So that might be another pop reference thing, but it doesn't make sense historically, so it makes sense somewhere else. And then General Dana makes perfect sense. He comes from a line. His father's father was given the post of pharaoh because he was a great general. You know, kind of like I said, recovering that thing. So he comes from a long line of generals and viziers and stuff like that. So it makes perfect sense he'd be General Dana. Cool. Yeah, so I think this one is the most weird to me. Maybe this is more of a pop culture reference, but historically I don't think these two make a lot of sense. Maybe this is like a Curse of Mummy type thing, but once again, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But you know, I think I do these videos to learn more about myself, and then I share it with you guys, so you guys don't have to do your own research. You guys just watch my 10-minute video and whatever. But yeah, so I'm no expert. Another curious thing here, we're gonna move to the lore aspect, and it's very curious that Ramses is chaos, because Ramses was kind of followed all the rules in his life. So we know now that these are primal beings, right? Order and chaos and destiny, and so to have him primarily with chaos is interesting. So I wonder if there's a lore tidbit of why that is. I would not expect him to be chaos. So another thing there, look out for that. Why is Ramses chaos? I'm not sure, right? He kind of went in, helped his people a lot, kind of did what he said he was going to do, and that was the end of it. So the other lore tidbit I want to talk about here is Ramses was deified, right? And most pharaohs are, but he's one of the few that was deified during his lifetime, and he claimed to be like not like he claimed to be Amun, which is Amun. This is the god of wind, and he is at times considered to be like the god of gods, right? You know, usually that's Ra, but sometimes it's him. Ra and him has fused at some point. It's all weird. The Egyptian gods are weird, and I don't really understand them fully. But it'd be quite curious if these two met after the shattering. You know, are you Amun? Is Amun going to be happy about that? Is he going to recognize that as truth, or is that just something that he said to legitimize his role? Wow, that was a hard word to say. That's all I have for today, guys. So now we covered the starters, and we're actually going to do a little bit of a lotto to see who the next character is going to be. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so here I have a list of every character that was in the alpha that we have not covered yet. So I figured it's a gotcha game. I as well, you know, do some randomness to decide who's next. So I have no idea, but it looks like it will be Achilles. Okay, so next up on the episode, we're going to be covering Achilles. He is someone I used a lot during the alpha, so I'm excited to learn more about him. So yeah, next time, be excited for Achilles, and I'll catch you guys later.